fluffy, furry buddy chewed his leg on the porch. Why'd you do it, Fluffy?
You're listening to Planet Green Trees. I'm Michael Coyne, your host. This is officially episode 156, People vs. Jones, the immunity decision. Anyways, without further ado, and thanks for hanging in there, guys, we're going to get Diagros on. We have a good friend and symbol of what can only be one of the most outrageous legal shenanigans put on anywhere. Barb Agro and her son Nick. Welcome. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us, Michael.
Thanks for having us, Michael.
Tell us what's going on. Is it? I know, for those that don't know, I know, Nick, your case out of Ferndale was dismissed by
Judge O'Brien.
By Judge O'Brien, and then the Oakland County appealed it.
And it was still at the Court of Appeals.
Oh, you're still at the Court of Appeals. Okay, there's not been a ruling yet. Is that right?
There has not been a ruling yet. Which is interesting.
And
right.
the dismissal was based upon not anything to do with the act. It was more based on the law of lenity and, that it's a confused law. And that goes a little bit like a due process concept, which it's a fascinating, it's an area that has just not really been addressed. And it's one of those ones that when you make that finding, it's, you can say just this one time. So, it's not like it can be used in other capacities. And maybe that's the play. Maybe they can affirm it and uphold it, but if it goes by long enough, no one else could ever claim it, right? It's, at that point, McQueen has come down, whatever. But, and I'm sorry to hear that. I guess you can attest to the just being tied in the court system and how awful that is. But
right.
You're back now, Barb, back in circuit court. Tell us about that journey.
Oh, me? Well, I have a court date for August 23rd, which is almost 3 years since the raid. And at this, the appellate court ruled that Oakland County has to either allow me to have a trial using my medical marijuana card or drop the case. So that's where we're at right now.
You have not returned yet from the case being at the Court of Appeals, or have you?
Yeah, it's been through the Court of Appeals.
No, I know that, but the Court of Appeals ruled, and the case has been remanded to the circuit court. What I was asking was, have you been back in front of
Judge Potts?
Potts in
Not
circuit.
August 23rd is my court.
That's what I was wondering. Okay. All right, I wasn't sure if you've been back in a couple of pre-trials. But you're suggesting that the order on remand says that they either they've got to set aside the conviction and they've got to afford you the opportunity to present a medical marijuana defense. I wonder if they're going to require you to have a Section 8 hearing.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. Because you didn't have any.
You have a right to appeal if they don't.
Right. Well, but but it's an interesting question, Nick. Have you thought about this in terms of because was there an evidentiary hearing before the trial for Barb? No, right?
There was an evidentiary hearing, I believe, in front of
Potts?
I believe it was Judge Ansadorian in district court.
48. Oh, in Rochester? No, not Rochester?
Yeah.
Rochester.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, because the house was okay. And then, but that would have been a preliminary exam. That wasn't like it wasn't a Section 8 hearing because that didn't really exist then.
No.
And it was the preliminary exam. That's what it was, right? So.
Never was.
And then but that's just. Did you present evidence and things like that at that hearing? But did Barb put her card in or testify?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we did. We did present that. She did say that, the attorney at the time was Amy Beth Bowen, and she told him that I was a medical marijuana patient, and Judge Asadorian remanded it over to the circuit court. She didn't want anything to do with it.
Right. That's kind of like what we were talking about today. Like there may even that's an interesting. I wonder you may. I'm just
Still need an evidentiary hearing.
for Section 8. I'm wondering if now she can make a Section 4 claim. I don't remember that. What was the issue of weights or plants? No, but you're under your plant count, right?
Wasn't it a lock?
Right.
It was locked doors.
Yeah, enclosed lock facility. And that
I mean,
was
but what I'm saying, if you had we just had this discussion about whether it'd be good for a jury or not. What would be described as an enclosed lock facility could be what it was, but for that 1 second, it wasn't. Not making it, unlocked or not enclosed, or it may be something that a jury would say that's silly that we have to sit here and we're going to make a finding that it's, not, that it is locked and enclosed. You know what I'm saying? Like that determination of something like that. You've just come to learn that that's the way that it is. But I'm saying no one's said that there hasn't really been a case that's defined the facts of what a locked and closed facility is. Like, is a house good enough? Can someone say that with definity? Does an outdoor grow need a roof? Every police officer says that. I hear there's nowhere in the law. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of like fallacies of these facts that law enforcement has developed, and but I wonder, on a different day in a different court, I bet maybe she could win on a Section 4, but. So have you heard from them? Are they going to drop the case and try to save face or no?
No,
no, we haven't heard anything. It was supposed to go to court in May, and my appellate attorney, Mary Chartier, lost her mother and had a bad automobile accident, so she's the one that requested for the court to postpone it, and then it gave me a new court date of August 23rd. So, I know, who knows what Oakland County will do. I know the other attorney was talking about how bad Darien County was. I'd set Oakland County against them any day.
I know. That's why, my answer to that was of the 10 judges I'm going to be in front of in the, my next 10 appearances, whomever they're going to be, just my vision of the bench in general that I appear in front of, between that group of people and a jury resolving any of these issues, I'd have to pick a jury. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's, and people don't understand the way the politics seeps into it. How one bench of, there's 20 judges have a unified mindset on the law's application when you can't say that about any other bench anywhere. Like, they all have a differing view, but that court, for some reason, was, out in front of this and knew what they were doing before it got there.
Trained by O'Connell.
Yeah. What do you guys think about all that? Did you ever listen, we're talking here, just loosely, but the tragedy of being dragged into the court system, being tied into it. I mean, Barb, I can't, when I think about it, it's just such an awful situation, and it's an example of how just ruthless, careless, selfish, what are they doing? Trying to save face at this point? Like, what is their purpose? What about life is going to be changed in any positive way by even having this here? They have to be out in front and make the case law. Anyway, so I just can't. I'm trying to get frustrated for you, I guess. But
I try not to get frustrated.
I know you. I
do.
But
it's nonsensical the way the state has approached it as well. You can't make sense of it. And then you look at a county like Oakland County and the way that they want to pursue and prosecute it, and it's saddening because I am certain that's not the intent of the people who voted for the act.
It is. I can't say it another way. Even if you are, generally objective, it's literally become intellectually dishonest to see this war, this way this is going, like these activities here. I'm talking the war, policy on marijuana prohibition. I'm just saying, like, but keeping that in mind, that is a failure. How that being applied with the same kind of, resilience to the way medical marijuana in this little microcosm of Oakland County is the same thing. It's just senseless and getting nowhere and just resources and waste. And I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I mean, I don't know. We're all in the middle of the storm, I guess. It's hard to see from the outside. But what keeps you guys positive in terms of, staying focused? Maybe we can encourage others who may be going through the same tragedies. What, if anything, what keeps you guys going?
Well, what keeps me going is the memory of my husband that they basically killed. I won't give up for him. He can't talk, he can't speak anymore. And it was so ridiculous what they did and how they did it, and I just won't give up. I will not give up until my dying breath.
And I would echo that. I think the thing that has always made our family strong is that, that there is a belief in the truth, and we knew what we were doing. I look at it as, we've been the holdouts. I know that a lot of people have taken plea deals in Oakland County because it's been very hard to get a fair shake in Oakland County. Any one of the attorneys that are on the show can attest it's really hard to get a fair shake in Oakland County. I think that we got lucky with the judge that we pulled. I think that he was open-minded, and I think that he deferred to the Court of Appeals to help him make that decision. And if it gets kicked back down to him, I'm certain he'll look for clear direction from the Court of Appeals. Again, there's a lot of arguments that could still be made in that clinic of relief case, and I know that we have a strong family. I know that we're persistent and we persevere, and I think that the memory of my father and my family's name in my community, I'll continue to fight for that till my dying breath. If we need to go to the Court of Appeals, if we need to go to the Supreme Court, I know the truth, and I've seen how Oakland County and the prosecutor's office, prosecutors, sheriff's department, police officers, I've seen how they've lied and colluded and try to make this something that it's not. And I think that the farther we get down the road, the more ridiculous they're going to look, because prohibition doesn't work. A majority of people are accepting of marijuana, whether it be medical marijuana or not. You look at the movement in Colorado, for instance. I have friends in Colorado that are in the industry, and they're Michigan natives, and they giggle at the way that Michigan and the legislature and the Attorney General has handled this. No economy needs more money than Michigan, and yet they're turning it away. If anybody has watched the movement in Colorado, they're proposing up to a 35% sales tax on medical marijuana. What kind of revenue do you think that's going to drive into their economy? It's absurd. It's absurd, and it makes no sense in Oakland County or in the state of Michigan.
This is something that, I don't know, seemingly has become more and more exposed in my focus on, medical marijuana in my practice. But it's something that if you're a criminal defense lawyer and you ever are, cross-examining a police officer, but you realize, like, in the criminal justice system, many cases, especially all the ones involving narcotics or the war on marijuana, they're the witnesses for the case are the police. The people that are making the case are the police. The people that are the witnesses in the affidavit or supplying the information is all through the police. And this whole process, this moving forward or claiming victory or any reason to support it, if there is dependent upon the integrity of the police officers. And the entire war on drugs is run on the principle that if the police officers say it happened, they believe that in front of a jury with no defense other than the cops are lying or we didn't do it, because that's the only defense you're left with in the war on drugs kind of defenses, that they're going to win that 10 times out of 10, and they're going to win on the theory that crazy doper, he's the conspiracy theorist, not us, the good police officers. Sure. But I can't help to just see so much more being revealed now because of the, just, the blatant arrogance that goes along with their ability to say anything, do anything, and justify it and contemplate it, it does create a lot of interesting scenarios for their, they're just, the loopholes they look for, the ways that they try to, they genuinely omit, things that, looking for facts, whereas they instead look for ways to find people outside of compliance, like just a resistance, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But where do you guys see this the case going, and ultimately when it comes back, Nick, if it does, or you think they're going to uphold it?
I think it'll come back. I think that there may be some direction given to Judge O'Brien. I believe at that point you start looking at Section 8, Section 4 defenses. I mean, I anticipate that it'll probably take another 300 to 600 days to get it figured out, potentially. Because Oakland County's not going to let go of that bone. I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
Right. Only in the way I see that they've treated my mother and in her case, with the appeals, and I assume they have an unlimited budget to probably spend within that county, and I know they have a department that just does appeals. But
I would love to know how much money has been spent on my case alone. I would just love to know just a figure. Yeah, no wonder they have to do all this, they confiscate money from, they get whatever they can from these drug busts, or even picking up the guy on the street, taking the money out of his wallet if he happens to have more than $100. They need that money so that, they can keep on prosecuting. It's ridiculous. I'd love to know how much of the taxpayer money is going in. Just my case alone.
Well, when you're playing for ego, I don't think stuff like that comes into the equation, which seems to be, picking and choosing certain cases that just are meaningless. But you know what? What I was thinking about, Barb, just while I was, there was no Section 8 hearing, so I just had an idea, I think, for your case if they start playing around with it. But you were at the district court level and you had some kind of hearing. Testimony was taken, meaning that the prosecutor put their witnesses on. They said marijuana, blah, blah, blah. But then when it was your turn, you entered cards, or did you bring in a doctor?
No.
Okay.
She had a copy of my cards and my caregiver card, because I had
a
caregiver, and also Sal's cards. At the time, of course, he was deceased, but it showed that I had every right to have those plants in my house.
Right. I was just thinking though that if I was just trying to think if there was a way to not have to have a Section 8 hearing, but the court could, just by the previous record that was made, make a finding that all three elements had been met.
Section 4 immunity hearing.
I'm just saying that, Corey. I'm just thinking of a way where, there's another legal base. Like maybe there's already been enough evidence that's been established where a court could make a, preliminary finding. That we, Potts may be looking to get out. Is it back in front of her?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's in front of Judge Potts, and from what the appellate court actually slapped her and Beth Hand's hands by some of the statements that Beth Hand had said in the courtroom when I had my other trial that I couldn't use my medical marijuana card. One statement was she wouldn't be here if she wasn't guilty. That's what she admonished the court. Also, at the same time, there were three different jurors well, first of all, Judge Potts said, if I can, if you have any questions, just send me a little note, and my clerk will take them, and I'll answer them for you. Three separate jurors on that trial asked if I was a medical marijuana patient, she looked him in the eye and said, I can't answer that. So the appellate court was not real pleased with Judge Bob or with Beth Hand because of those statements that were made in court. So, you know, they got egg on their face already. I don't know if they want more egg.
It's like some witch trial type stuff. You wouldn't be in here if you weren't guilty.
Well, just to expound on that, and I'm not saying anything negative to Sister Counsel Beth Hand, but the court did make a finding that, in fact, the conduct that was exhibited during the trial was prosecutorial misconduct. However, they also found that the curative instruction given by the court to the jury or whatever cured the problem and did not impact the case. But that's like...
Still prosecutorial misconduct.
Right, like they pulled out the bazooka and shot it at us. They just missed, but now they're not...
Yeah. Oh, dear.
I mean, you know, beyond those two facts and the threats, I forgot if the remand mentioned the yelling at the jurors. Was there references to that at all, the way that was handled?
Yelling at the jurors? Oh,
well,
you
know,
mean outside the courtroom?
Well,
Or,
the jurors were admonished for they were admonished for doing nothing, and they were questioned about what they saw after some protesters may have encountered them or whatnot, and during that encounter, there was very, very harsh words that were said or directed that was part of the, evaluation of the prosecutor. Am I right about that or no?
I don't. They were admonished because there were evidently people in the parking lot, but I don't know what you meant about yelling.
Well, no, I'm saying that the judge gave firm instructions, almost threatening-like. When I say
absolutely. Absolutely.
Which tilted what would normally be a level-headed or supposedly level-headed to that point, but by saying the thing that they said and the way that they said it and questioning how that interaction or whatever, if it didn't even exist, was a way, influencing the jury. I don't recall. I know that was a fact of the case, and I remember, but did the Court of Appeals on remand address that at all?
I don't believe
I don't think so. No. They were more concerned with the Beth Hand's statement that she wouldn't be here if she wasn't guilty to the jury.
Yeah, that's
not... yeah.
That doesn't work in any court. I don't care whether it's medical marijuana or anyone else. It's like saying...
Well, apparently it does, unfortunately. It does in Oakland County.
Well, it's like saying, see the defendant over there? She refused to testify. I wonder why she's demanding to remain silent. Why do we want to hear from her? You know what that means. Wink, wink. That's
Yeah. And I think we were upset, too, is because, the judge had told the jury that she would answer any of their questions, and when they questioned her, she said she couldn't answer it. Come on. Why bother saying it if you can't answer it? She wasn't going to answer.
And you mentioned something that is kind of interesting, and it's in a completely different context, but those moments, those questions are critical. I don't care whatever case they're in. It means that the jury is, contemplating something, and you have no idea what that may or may not be. But they're clearly caught up, and they send out a question, and how that question is answered in that moment, without any doubt, is going to direct, in some capacity, the direction of the verdict, right? Because they're caught on something of what they have and what the information they want to get. And if they get it, it's going to most likely, provide things that weren't there before and could direct someone swaying or swing. I don't know. That's how I see it. But the point is that it's critical, and how the court responds in those moments is everything. Like the whole case can hinge on that. And I had this situation happen where I had gone through a Section 8 hearing, and the court found that we had a right to have a medical marijuana defense, and did not articulate what about the Section 8 hearing, was, created a question of fact. But nonetheless, we get a jury, and the jury sent out a note that says, can Comorn's client be a caregiver? And the judge says, use your collective memory, which is ridiculous, because you wouldn't be able to have a Section 8 hearing unless a person was eligible to act in that capacity, right? The court's already ruled upon that, But it's, what I'm saying is this whole area of the instructions, yours is a ridiculous one, as I said, and it's just a blatant lie. It's not even a legal justification. But this is an area that it will be will get messier before it gets smoother, I think, unfortunately, because the point is if you get to say what you want in front of a jury and it's a reasonable situation, most people are going to be pissed off by the police behavior. I mean, I think statistically the numbers show that, and who cares anymore? So you guys listen. Got a couple minutes left in the show. We got to go to Rick Thompson with the news. We go over a little bit, but I can't tell you how. I want to wish you my best, and I want to hear back from you guys soon. And I'm glad to hear that you're strong like rocks. It's encouraging, and I know a lot of people are supporting and encouraging and taking a lot of inspiration from you. So please come back and visit again, and thanks for sharing.
Michael. Thank you
very much, Michael.
All right,
have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
There's never enough time because I would like to talk to them a little bit longer. Also, we have 2 minutes left. So, with that being said, let's get it. I just want to talk for 1 second because I'm setting up the intro. No, we're gonna pass on that, but let's just pass on the intro, technical issues, and go directly to USA Today's name, mentioning him and the editor-in-chief of Compassion Chronicles, and much, much more, bringing us the news. Rick Thompson.
Well, thank you, Michael. This is the news. It is July 11th, 2013. Lansing State Journal reports in an editorial they want to improve access to medical marijuana. And, quote, the early steps towards discussing medical marijuana dispensaries in Michigan are being taken in Michigan House. That's good news for marijuana patients. Michigan voters who favored allowing medical marijuana envision domains for cancer patients and others to legally seek relief from debilitating symptoms. Representative Mike Calton's bill would let cities decide whether or not to allow dispensaries. The legislation may have an uphill battle as some lawmakers resist efforts to expand access, yet voters wanted suffering patients to have a safe, legal means to get marijuana for legitimate medical reasons. Dispensaries could, and should, be part of that process, and it's good to see Calton initiating the discussion, end quote. In support of that sentiment, Michigan Radio also reports, House Kevin Cotter says, a vote to allow medical marijuana facilities under House Bill 4271 is, quote, very possible when lawmakers return from their summer recess. Representative Mike Calton says many of his GOP colleagues are starting to take interest in the issue. Quote, I definitely feel that as Republicans, we're not going to survive unless we adequately address contemporary issues like medical marijuana, he added. But Calton says that Republicans in the House may want some changes made to the bill before it moves up. That will likely include mandatory testing of medical marijuana for things like pesticides and mold. Nick Nagro asked a question earlier. He says, who knows how much it would generate with sales and revenue in Colorado? And the answer is, I know. The latest Colorado retail marijuana sales estimates are for $291 million in fiscal year 2014. Approximately 44% of that would be generated exclusively in Denver. And this estimate comes from the Colorado legislature. They're estimated that the annual recreational marijuana sales totaling $291 million. The estimates closely mirror but do not include current market for medical marijuana. Sales of medical cannabis, edibles, and related products via dispensaries totaled around $200 million for fiscal 2012. Estimates put that somewhere between $250 and $300 million for fiscal 2013, which ended June 30th. Colorado will release data for that period in the coming weeks. Now, that's not the only projection of income from Colorado either. The Colorado Center on Law and Policy last fall predicted sales would come in at around $300 million annually. And the Colorado Future Center said they expected it to be, and that's, by the way, at Colorado State University, released a report saying that it could top $605 million annually. Those are very large numbers. The $2 bill drive started Wednesday. Leaders of medical marijuana and cannabis legalization groups in Michigan began a 3-week campaign to demonstrate the economic clout. They want supporters to spend at least one $2 bill for every cash purchase. In Michigan, with 130,000 registered users of medical marijuana and 30,000 caregivers licensed to grow the marijuana, cannabis advocates say they hope their economic argument gets traction among those willing to put jobs in the state economy ahead of moral arguments about drug use. According to a study released this year by several researchers, including one from the Rand Corp think tank in Santa Monica, California, Americans who use marijuana, both legally and illegally, spend about $30 billion per year just on cannabis itself. Quote, Michigan has slightly over 3% of the U.S. population, so that should mean Michigan's marijuana users currently spend about $945 million a year on marijuana, said Karen O'Keefe, Director of State Policy for the Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit Marijuana Policy Project. Harvard researcher Jeffrey Myron found that in 2008 Michigan could see about $96 million in tax revenue just from taxing and regulating marijuana, according to O'Keefe. And about 13% of Michiganders reported using marijuana in the past year, according to federal surveys of nationwide drug use. And the big story here, Hemp Incorporated indicating their hemp crop in China is on schedule. This is a significant story, not necessarily for the success of China, but for the variety of different ways that hemp is being used in China. Hemp seeds, hulled and marketed as hemp hearts or as toasted hemp seed, are in high demand by consumers. The actual retail value of a single harvest in seed products alone can be well over $2 million. An American demand for hemp food is on the rise. Another part of the crop consisting of a hemp cultivar suitable for textile manufacturing. A leading natural fiber company, Enviro Textile, says research has proven hemp's ability to kill surface bacteria, where cotton, polyester, and polyethylene allow bacteria staph to remain on surface for up to months at a time. China's military is using industrial hemp fabric for uniforms to fight staph infections. Other tests show hemp fabrics are superior resistance to ultraviolet and infrared wavelengths, providing multiple applications for military use. Hemp CEO Bruce Perlowin stated, quote, these tests show antimicrobial and antibacterial attributes of the hemp plant that, along with the healthy heart omega fatty acids and protein in the seeds, and hemp's soil remediation qualities, make for a sustainable crop useful in every aspect. And a value-added part of the hemp product is the chaff, a highly absorbent central part of the stem. We want all the chaff we can use for hemp adobe bricks that we'll be making in facilities in Arizona, continued Perlowin. The market for eco-friendly landscapes for building markets is huge. Michigan, we need to take part in this hemp agricultural revitalization. And folks, that is the news. It's July 11th, 2013. I am Rick Thompson.
Thank you, Rick. I think we are going to shut it down, I think. Went a little bit over. But any final thoughts as we go around the room and wrap it up here?
Birmingham Compassion meeting next Tuesday night, July 16th.
What will the topics be, Chad? What will they be?
Dan Korobkin will be there.
Who's he?
He is from the ACLU.
I just saw him arguing on Hugh Perkins' show on this last issue.
Was he on Let It Rip? Wow, nice.
I think it was on a prayer in school issue.
He and Daniel Groh have been working on the
What's that?
Joseph. He and Daniel Groh have been working on the Joseph Cassius.
I may try to get another attorney there or something too.
That case is still going on, Jamie?
I believe in some capacity it is. Yeah, they're trying to bring it back into the state courts. I mean, the last that I heard, anyway. We should have asked, just as an aside, we should have asked Daniel Groh when he was on to find out about that.
Chad, and what will the topics be? You'll have ACLU. He's showing up?
ACLU.
Well, that's a good score. Can't get him to call on the show, huh?
I could probably.
What are you talking about?
I'll ask him on Tuesday.
Whatever.
See if we can get him.
Put the pressure on. You've got him. Captive audience.
And that will be where the Baldwin Library on.
At 300 West Maryland, Birmingham.
All right.
Lovely downtown Birmingham.
And give Solani, give us a brief rundown. What's happening there? Good news, bad news, no news.
Right now, not much, but there will be some activity on our part in the coming weeks. Some town hall meetings, some more community outreach type things, and they'll be leading up to a larger event in October in conjunction with the Students for Sensible Drug Policy at the EMU campus, and we'll give out more details as they become available.
When you wake up in the morning, look inside your mirror, you know.
And Rick, any final thoughts?
Michigan's been very blessed lately that some of our local stories have made national news. We've been very fortunate with the Curtis Kyle situation. When Curtis's wheelchair trip to Washington, D.C. really caught news in the media. It really caught news in the media. And he had quite a bit of exposure and quite a bit of a welcome in D.C. when he arrived. It's a very big success. Then also the news about Google and the Michigan Compassion Grant has taken off. That was a subject of a Metro Times editorial by Larry Gabriel, who's just a wonderful guy and he writes incredible articles for that periodical. And then, of course, this $2 bill program that we've seen here has also been picked up by a lot of news media as well. I think the important thing is that incredible stories are happening every single day. But if it's not getting out there, if you're not telling the tale, and if you're not sharing the story, then they just are wonderful, obscure legends. Let's bring the things that we know of that are happening that are good out into the spotlight, and let's start participating. Let's be less fearful, and let's change our state and make it into what we want it to be.
I'll say this, Ypsilanti, I had some rough po that we were dealing with this week, today especially, court, city of Ypsilanti being kind of, but it could be for other reasons, kind of, when I was talking earlier about how I feel the war on drugs is driven by the integrity of the officer, and when I say to him, you say you took a confession from my client, and this is the Miranda format. Is there a signature showing that my client's knowledge? No, we don't make him do that. I just read it to him. I go, do you record the conversation? No. Do you videotape it? No. Is it something you have available to you from the office when you leave that you put in the raid bag, the warrant? Say you had. No, we don't have one. Is it too expensive? No. Let me ask you this. What kind of phone do you have? I got an iPhone. Did you have a recording device? I don't know how to use it on there. I go, does it have a camera? But that's not my work phone. My work phone it does have a camera. I go, let me see your camera. Do you have pictures in it? Do you know how to work it? Like, what could have stopped you from taking a picture of the card that you said didn't exist, or, because they didn't even acknowledge the card. But the point is, I asked him about 7 to 10 things that he could have done to document this. I mean, the story goes on that they do not write a statement. I do not ask them to do that. Why not? I take notes from what they say. They speak, I write. Do you let them read it afterwards to confirm or deny what you wrote as being exactly what they said? No. Because when they speak and I hear it, I write it down, and that's it. Okay? But you carry around with you a Miranda warning because you can't remember to read 4 lines that everyone and their grandmother knows, right? But you've got the confidence that you can hear everything that's said, write it down without anyone. Never made it. It was insane. I mean, but the point that I'm making is that it brings to mind this. And as I begin to question, somebody goes, "No, sir, I didn't." You know why? Because you're questioning my integrity. Like that's where they'll go. They'll go like you're questioning, like you got to make me a liar. And I'm going to call. I got to say I got more integrity than you. I'm just a cop. I mean, it gets into that. I said to one of the guys, issue about the search warrant and whether the garage is actually a different address than the search warrant of the house where my client lives. And I said to him, what in the world leads you to believe that location is even attached to the house that says 327 on it? Because we had reason to believe. I go, wait, let's stop there. So you've got reason to believe. Okay. Now let's talk about some other things. Did you have an electric bill? There was electric coming out. Did you know where it was going to? No. Did you do a search of the records? No. Did you check a plot of land? No. Did you check a license plate that may be registered to that of people coming and going that was in the other living arrangements and other apartments around this detached garage across the driveway from the house that they were targeting? And there was nothing in the house. But they went into the garage. And they said they did not see the different address affixed on the garage. And I said to him, what is it that led you to believe that it was connected there? We had reason to believe. So there's nothing else. Just reason to believe. What was the reason to believe? Where did that come from? Well, we looked at it and it looked like it connected. That's the extent of the argument. And that's the stuff they run with. The point being that, I don't know. I mean, I think these, it's like they're going to run it. The judge, even despite all that, made some comments. They try to be arbitrary about it, as much as they can. Like, to call that cop out right then and there is like to tell him to go home to his mom. You know what I mean? It's like
to violate the space-time continuum of the courtroom.
Right, like it's not going to happen. So, so the solution in this, you want to hear the solution to this insanity, which means that, like, some of these judges know exactly what's going on, and they have to find a way to intellectually let it go on. Otherwise,
continue to pursue the case.
And it comes, even though it's completely, that's what I'm saying, they got a lot of discretion as far as what they can do, and they've got a way. But what was interesting in this case,
wipe the slate clean a little.
But they were running with this. So I had this case. I was arguing Section 4 of the preliminary exam. It kind of comes up here, and we know, and we've decided this case, and I brought it to the court's attention, is determined by question of fact. It's gonna, the issue of whether you're in compliance with Section 4 is determined by a question of fact to be determined by the judge, right? But the burden. Too loud. First of all, is anybody still listening?
I don't know.
Do you care anymore?
I'm still hanging in there.
I thought you meant the audience.
Here's my point, because it's like, does the card mean anything? So at this preliminary exam, which the issue at the preliminary exam is not, do you have an affirmative defense? Or, did you have a self-defense? The issue is, this man's presumed innocent. What evidence do you have that you can show that some crime took place and it's probable that this defendant committed it? That's it. That's all they showed the exam. So if the cop gets on the stand and says, I looked over there and I'm lying out of my mouth, but this is what happened, that establishes the requisite amount of evidence to show probable cause, and the judge will bind it over. In fact, most judges will bind over cases for the preliminary exam because they're not going to stir it up. They can be appealed, and they think, the prosecutors have got a right to a jury trial, and so they'll say things like, it's a question of fact for the jury. It's a question of fact for the jury. Those are good arguments, counsel, but you got the argument of the jury. My job here is just to see if they get probable cause. I will say, though, that low threshold that gets the ball rolling in a criminal case. Because if you don't establish that, the case should be dismissed. But that low threshold that is enough to get the ball rolling, I would argue, is the similar threshold of what a Section 8 hearing would be, or lower. You know what I mean? So you get it on the other side. Again, not something for the put on whatever hat you want, bad in the implementation, but good for defending yourself. So as I'm arguing about this, and there's some huge questions of fact regarding, there's some questions of fact about the weight. It was an interesting situation. They only tested one of the batches of what they were claiming was material, and that batch itself fell well below the amount of 7.5 ounces, which was the 3 cards that they had. And that was their beef. They had too much material. And they did not weigh, nor did they test scientifically any of the other stuff, but they did it at the station. And the judge let this guy read from his report what it weighed, which included the packaging. But that's the kind of stuff that was offered against the less than 7.5 ounces that they had. That was of the only amount that they could test with any certainty that it was marijuana and how much it weighed. Everything else was just, it looked like that other stuff. And even though we weighed it in the police station, it's not calibrated. Oh, we didn't mention, but we weighed it in the mason jars too. Anyways, as this thing closes and it just seems to be all falling into place, I realize there's a legitimate Section 4, a reasonable approach to this Section 4-wise, which is that it's not a plant issue. There's no locked and closed. I mean, the search warrant's another issue. I'm not talking about that right now. They and whatever the materials is in various stages, and whatever they tested was, it could affirm as being marijuana, was less than 7.5 ounces. So I'm like, this is Section 4, and it's not just judge where the preliminary exam and probable cause. I'll concede probable cause does exist. Prosecutors I said this earlier, prosecutors arguing this is irrelevant. This doesn't apply, judge. He's got to file a motion. He's got to we have to have a hearing on Section 4. I go, the presentation of Section 4 or the card is to stop the prosecution, and I can use it in defense of the prosecution. It's meaningful. It's in evidence now. So what does it mean? And I know we talked about this, but what was the most fascinating part of it, and I did cite to the court the opinion that had just come down, which she says is this is a question of fact for the jury counsel. There was a lot of questions of fact there for the jury, which is essentially the rubber stamp that they would do in a close call. I mean, I will concede the law is tie goes to the runner, tie goes to the prosecutor in those scenarios. It's a very low threshold. Very few judges will kick in. If you went to 10 courtrooms any day of the week, 10 out of 10 probably would. Sometimes you get a case charge thrown out or witness doesn't show. But if they want to go, judges aren't going to pity-patty. I mean, some of them are looking for it if it's there. But I'm saying that was going. No one's talking. No one's denying it. But the question becomes, what significance does this immunity have now at this point? We are inserting it here. The cards are in evidence. Let's apply them. And then when we do apply them, and I argue, the way, and Dan agreed with me, the idea of this presumption kicks in not if it's locked and closed, not if it's transferred only to your patient. It says, if you have a card, the amount of marijuana is not more than what the Act allows, and nothing else, no other limitations. Dan mentioned some, but that was not a limitation beyond what I'm talking about. It doesn't say in compliance. I think, in abuse me if I'm wrong, but
I mean, he's just talking about the closing language of the paragraph that says in accordance with this act.
Which paragraph?
4A and 4B.
Yeah, but the way that this thing is being utilized is that if independent of, I mean, this seems to me to be if you somehow get past some of the I don't know, maybe it's even a debate. If it's a debate of whether it's 2.5 or it's a debate about whether it's locked or enclosed, you then focus on whether the amount of marijuana was less than they're allowed to have under the Act, they have a card, and whether there's evidence to rebut the presumption. If not, you win. Meaning, Dan was talking about that. Like he's saying
if the prosecutor doesn't have any
it doesn't matter.
evidence to rebut
no
medical use, then the presumption should stand in the courtroom as well.
No one's talking about that. And when does the presumption only kick in after you've established that you're going to locked and closed facility less than 2.5? If you already got to do that, then you're protected under Section 4. You don't need a presumption. Like the presumption should come at some point in time. To me, it's like the tiebreaker. Close call. It's a close call. I'm not sure if it's locked and closed. So let's turn over the card. Let's go to the stage 2. Law says now, well, if these two factors, these are the limited factors, that being the weight being within the total card count, that's fair. If you're looking at Section 4 statutory protections, and that they have a card, nothing else, and there's nothing to say that they're doing it for other reasons. That is like logical to me. You know, the tiebreaker is, let's focus on this. Let's take it away from not letting someone have immunity because of a stupid, caught-up factual dispute about a stupid door being closed or not. So let's focus on what the law really means. It means that if you're in a bind on Section 4, interpretively, let's take it to these two finite factors, because it really makes sense. A card,
2.5 ounces,
and a weight that, what's reasonable. It could be a caregiver for 3 people, let's say.
7
or whatever. Or whatever, 5.
Right.
No more than 15. But the point being, those two factors would be the, like the end of the funnel, or end of the, that would be the final arbiter, unambiguous valuation
of Section 4 compliance.
As a tiebreaker for factual disputes. I like that. I'm adopting that as my new theme. Rick, any thoughts?
It's been an engaging discussion. I was very excited to hear Barb Agro and her accounting of some of the misdeeds taken on by the Oakland County system. Reminded me of very much of some of the discussions we've had on Planet Green Trees regarding the Redden situation. Some of the same characters, some of the same things, and that the phrase prosecutorial misconduct seems to be coming up in association with these individuals. So I just hope that at the end of the day there's justice for the agros. And as happy as I am for them, I'm also sad for all of the other people that face similar situations but didn't have the financial resources or the support of family to carry them through a similar battle, and that may have capitulated to a plea bargain much earlier in this thing. So, and just as an FYI, some of those protesters outside that courtroom, Jamie and I were some of those protesters outside that courtroom.
The idea that is an issue is offensive as well. The idea that if you can't protest someone not being able to exercise, and the reality is this.
Sabota ran an article on it.
I thought it was strange that their defense attorney, Sabota, would say that the issue were the protesters, not the fact that he couldn't present a proper defense.
It's
seriously in the end.
He didn't blame anybody.
In the final analysis,
he's saving face.
In the final analysis, the lack of the defense was more likely the deciding factor than anything.
Yeah, I mean, the courtroom situation existed one day out of the entire trial, and it
And the protesters wouldn't have been there if they were putting out their...
One could argue that everybody that didn't protest should be punished.
Why?
Because
like that.
They all have an obligation to uphold just laws, and nobody could realize. And everybody that was upholding the contrary, which would have been not being allowed to have a mention of a jury trial, anyone that was upholding that stuff was wrong. What do you know? And they just all conspired to keep it going, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you?
I was on vacation that day.
We were ejected from the courtroom if we refused to comply with removing buttons that said and removing shirts that said Barbara Agro is a medical marijuana patient. We were. That was an ouchie. Yes. There will be blood on the headphones tonight.
Ow.
That's all I'm saying. But yeah, we were ejected from the courtroom if we refused to comply with removing the things that they found offensive. And as you mentioned, she gave some very harsh jury instructions to ignore, the protesters, and if they had seen anything, that they had to report it and all that stuff.
Did they ever actually threaten the jurors, with penalties for their verdict?
That's an instruction that took place away from our hearing. We were not there when those instructions were given. So
that would definitely cross a line.
Because I believe what happened was the judge left, went to where the jurors had been sequestered inside a separate room, gave them this instruction prior to them being returned back to the courtroom, so that way they didn't have to clear the gallery. So that's my recollection of it.
I thought there was a public, scolding where they were brought out. And I don't know.
But what would it be based on? I mean, it couldn't be based upon penalizing the juror for their verdict.
No, the prosecutor would have come in and complained that there was influence to the jurors, and they need to be some kind of curative instruction needs to be read to them. And they brought him out and said, whether you saw it or not, let me say this, that if any of you think and draw your conclusions based on medical marijuana, you're violating the law. Stuff like that. Way over our time.
So it was basically a threat, violating the law.
Well,
Here's the thing. We sit here and we think to ourselves, look at the carnage. Look at the carnage that case played out, okay? And I mean, I can't even, it's not even funny, but I'm saying even legally. All of the misjustice. Like all the stuff that went on, the trial, and all the rulings and all that stuff is just, destroyed because it's meaningless. It's just a path of the wrong legal decisions over and over again. And there was a finding that the prosecutor's office had misconduct, and the judge said there. All right, now the carnage of all of that is just exemplified by the fact that it's a circuit court judge in a trial like that with those kind of equities, and it's a prosecutor's office that is still leading the crusade.
Yes.
Making it just even more absurd. But what I was going to say is, while we sit here and see this judge as being completely in one way, amongst her peers, how do you think she's being perceived?
Hard to say.
Do you think that she would rather be reversed in appeal or have a not guilty verdict come out of her room?
Ouch.
Never mind.
Yeah, sad but true. The politics of being a judge. She could affect a lot more campaign contributions than with something like that coming out of her courtroom.
But from a media perspective, I can certainly make a hell of a lot of good stuff with a jury verdict that says not guilty.
Mm.
Really, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there. Reversal on appeal is one thing, but
listen, I just want to say one thing. We're going to wrap it up because I see Brian Vaughn still in the here. Brian Vaughn. This could be called the Brian Vaughn special half hour. But while I think about that, I saw a special about the Eagles. They did a whole any thoughts?
How they're all bald?
No, just.
Brian's the only one that can hear this last extra half hour because he's on the phone.
So the fun is what I'm saying. I think Brian looks like the bass player, the guy they brought in later, a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? The document I told you he didn't care. And I thought for some reason I thought Brian would be something like the Southern California 70s rock. But they have they had a significant point. I guess we're playing some Eagles. That's what I'm trying to say.
There you go.
But for now, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening to Planet Green Juice. Best wishes to Brian. And we'll see you next week.
On the porch, good dog Fluffy, old friend, my pal. Fluffy's got his buddy.